the Conservatives in Bolton. Sophie Long is with the Liberal Democrats in Southampton. But first, let's speak to James Cook, who's been with Gordon Brown in Stirling. James.
Yes, Gordon Brown has been visiting a nursery in this building here. He was here for about an hour, and he also took questions from local people in a question and answer session, which at times had the air of a citizens' advice bureau about it, with Mr. Brown answering questions and dispensing advice on a whole range of subjects, such as tax credits, on pension, on how to get a job, and also on paternity leave. And these are issues that Mr. Brown is very keen to talk about today and throughout the election campaign, because his position is that Labour, he says, has improved family life and has improved the money coming into the family homes over the past 13 years and will continue to do so. So that was the position here in Stirling today with the Prime Minister. My colleague Chris Buckler is in Bolton with the Conservative Party.
Yes, indeed, and David Cameron is on his way to Bolton, but he's sticking to that idea of a broken Britain that needs to be fixed. As you were hearing a short time ago, it's a theme that has proved controversial, and there's been a second problem for the Tories, and that's the fact that some campaigners have found it difficult to sell their solution on the doorsteps, this idea of a big society rather than big government. However, today I think you're seeing a different approach. David Cameron standing on stage with Brooke Kinsella, someone who has been deeply affected by knife crime, her brother stabbed and killed. And it's really that human idea that's being tried to put across today. So Mr. Cameron clearly still believes this is a vote winner. Today he's been talking to BBC Radio 1 listeners as well, and saying that the Conservatives can still win this election, but it's going to have to be a good last 10 days of campaigning. Let's find out the mood in the Liberal Democrat camp. Sophie Long is with them in Southampton.
Thanks, Chris. Well, Nick Clegg has just left that media huddle behind me. He was being asked about what he would do in the event of a hung parliament. He's been asked those questions every step of this election campaign, and every step he's refused to give any real indication until this week. And now he just can't make those questions go away. What he's come here to Southampton to talk about is his plans for the NHS. And he's just been in the building behind me talking to some children who are being treated here for cancer and speaking to their parents and the staff on the ward there too. He's going to go from here to the RCN conference in Bournemouth, where he's going to tell nurses that he can make the NHS a better place by spending more money in some areas and cutting waste in others. And he's going to be asking the nurses there what they think of his plans.
Sophie Long, Chris Buckler and James Cook, thank you all very much. Well, to round it all up, with me here is our political correspondent Laura Koonsberg. The focus is certainly on policy today, not the hung parliament, but the problem with that is that it also becomes a focus on spending and spending cuts.
Yes, that's absolutely right. The parties have said we don't want to talk about what happens if there's a photo finish in the election. We want to talk about the plans we've got for the country, our policies. Where it gets a bit sticky for them is when they have to take questions on just how they would pay for it. Because whoever wins the election would have to cope with a huge hole in the public finances, the deficit as it's known. But when it comes to the amount of detail that the parties want to give us about where they would cut in order to deal with that big hole in the public cash, or where they would increase taxes to find another way of trying to fill up this big hole, they just do not want to get into very much detail. And they've had a rap over the knuckles from the independent number crunchers, the IFS, today, for not giving very much detail to the electorate. So it's not just a hole in the public finances, there's a big gap in the information that politicians are giving to the public too.
And briefly, talking of hung parliaments, Nick Clegg has faced yet more questions about what he would do in the event of one, but it's getting quite confusing.
Yes, because he keeps changing his position in the last couple of days. At the weekend, he indicated for the first time that he might help out Labour if they, that he would not help out Labour if they end up coming in third place. Then yesterday, he left open the suggestion that he might help them if they got rid of Gordon Brown. But today, he's gone back to a line that he used to have, saying it's not up to me, it's up to the millions of voters in the countries to decide. Now, they had held the line quite firmly, and I think they might wish that they hadn't created this confusion in the first place, because as we've just discovered, it gets a bit confusing.
Laura, thank you very much. Well, there is more on our special election website, where you'll find a guide to what a hung parliament is and what it could mean. The website address bbc.co.uk/election. But that is all from us here in Westminster. Now back to John in the studio. John.
Sophie, thanks very much indeed. Now, the Scottish National Party has launched last-ditch legal proceedings to try to force the BBC to include their